So, Jake, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
So last year was a very interesting year, especially the fourth quarter and how it affected the technology industry. There are estimates that went as high as 156,000 jobs that were lost across the board. Meta alone had let go of roughly 13% of its workforce, about 11,000 people. And the reason why I'm highlighting Meta is because you had the opportunity last year to work at Meta, and you also had quite a journey from being a Stanford graduate in 2022, getting an opportunity to work at Meta. And then I'm going to let you tell your story. But when did you start at Meta and what facility were you at?
Yeah, so you're totally right. I graduated from Stanford in June of 2022, and I started at Meta around mid-September. And I was based in the Bay Area. And what that means is the work was fully remote, but I still had the opportunity to work out of any of the offices within the Bay Area. There are a number of them. The ones that I had chosen to work out of were the SF office and the Menlo Park office. Now, the SF office is a high rise, it's in the city, in that Salesforce Tower area of San Francisco. Really beautiful office. That was the one I went to more day to day. The main headquarters in the Bay Area is the Menlo Park office. That's where a lot of the action happens, where most of the teams are stationed. But it was a bit of a trek. I really only went there in order to really experience what it was like to be on that campus and see what Meta was like at scale. November.
So, Jake, did you have any idea that a layoff was around the corner?
At first, no. So I joined around mid-September, and at that time, there had been some articles floating around about, hey, Meta's ad revenue not doing as well as it had done in the past. Its earnings reports weren't necessarily hitting the marks that the company had wanted to. So during September, Mark had announced a hiring freeze, actually that exact same week that I had joined. So, that was the first kind of inkling of, hey, something is happening, something is coming. But at that time, I still didn't really have it never came across my mind that, hey, I might lose my job. It was just the company is going through a rough patch. Maybe you have to do some extra training for a while. And then after that, you'll help the company and then you'll figure it out from there.
Mhm.
Come November, there was that Wall Street Journal article that leaked, hey, layoffs are coming at Meta and a lot of other big tech companies as well. And then eventually Mark got on himself and confirmed that layoffs were going to occur. So that was around the Monday of that week before I got laid off. And I think that was the first time when it really crossed my mind of, hey, this is happening is a non-zero probability that you are going to, you know, be laid off and lose your job. And I think I spent the week obviously nervous and unsure what was going to happen. There are some ways of thinking about it in that I was new, I was ready to work, and I thought that would possibly be able to protect my job. And
Yeah.
then there is also the other end of, you're new, you haven't really started, and as they're laying off people, they have to think about company priorities and what's going to allow Meta to stay strong. So at the end of the day, I was let go, but I don't think I really had any indication until they formally notified me that week.
For you to detail out your journey and go through this, and it takes a level of resiliency too, right? Like you said, you had a plan. Hey, you're going to be at Meta, thinking long term, and unfortunately, that didn't pan out. But you did pivot, and you got back on your feet, and you decided, hey, this is what I need to do for next step. So, kudos to you for jumping back on the saddle and
Thank you.
continuing forward. For final thoughts, Jake, what do you recommend for individuals who may have been laid off as well from these tech companies, or just laid off in general? And how do they navigate this current job market with the guys that they may not have the resources, or they may not be geographically located near Silicon Valley, and what do they do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I love that last part. I think, it's important to acknowledge the kind of good fortune, serendipity, and the advantage that having a network and having gone to Stanford has provided during the job search. Obviously not everyone has the opportunity to have that kind of network. And I think it's important that as you're looking for a job, no matter, what network you come from, what background you have, whether or not you have the resources that I had as I've been searching for a job, is that it's important to assess what resources you do have. And what I mean by that is, hey, let's say you're like me, maybe you didn't go to Stanford, but you come from a company like Meta, big company where, people, your coworkers or previous coworkers, for example, had gone to a school like Stanford or do have networks. So even if you don't personally have a strong network, then it's important to think about who do you know that you would be somewhat comfortable reaching out to that does have a strong network. And you really have to tap into that. You cannot be afraid to ask for help. There's absolutely no shame in being laid off, especially in these circumstances. For the most part, it usually has nothing to do with your performance. It doesn't reflect poorly on you as a person. So I think, put that kind of anxiety aside and be willing to ask for help and know who to go to. So, a lot of the job hunt is just good luck and what opportunities come across. But people are willing to help you, but they need to know that you need the help. So, a lot of it is good luck, but there's nothing to say that you can't create your own. So I know that's one thing. And again, that still assumes that you're coming from a company like Meta where maybe you know someone. Let's
Right.
say, one step down is maybe you don't even know anyone personally. Again, it's about putting yourself out there. So for example, for me, it was about just making that LinkedIn post. And
Mhm.
to caveat is, or to preface it, is I don't use LinkedIn that often, to be quite honest. Like I have connections, I add people here and there, but compared to others, I don't really post. I don't keep people updated. But when I really needed it and I did post, people were out there and they were listening, they were willing to help. So it's about putting yourself out there. I don't think people would have known that I needed the help unless I actually made that post to tell them. And I think a lot of people reached out to me and they said, "Hey, like I didn't even know you had been laid off. I just assumed that you were safe because you didn't say anything." But when they realized that I had actually been laid off, they're more than happy to help. They were saying like, "Hey, let me know if I can do anything." I think that was really great to see. But if that's not you, if you don't have LinkedIn, you don't have that kind of network, then go find an event. There are a ton in the Bay Area, in Southern California, across the nation, like wherever you are. I'm sure that there's some kind of event where people like you have either been laid off or interested in breaking into the tech sector, are kind of chomping at the bit and they want to meet people. And someone there is going to know someone. So, don't be afraid to take the time, put yourself out there. A lot of the job hunt, is applications, of course, but you have to be able to know someone in order to get the interview. It's not a prerequisite, but it definitely does help. So, the tech network is dense. You'll find someone willing to help you. Um, Obviously, right now, with the given job market, there aren't a ton of job openings, especially for someone at my age. So what I mean by that is a predicament that I went through was, this is no longer my fresh out of college, so I'm not really in that new grad bucket anymore. But I'm also not a senior engineer, so I don't have the 3 to 5 years of experience that often are requirements for these jobs. So I was looking at, mid-sized companies because right now a lot of big tech is being impacted by the economy. A lot of these layoffs are occurring at these bigger companies, but actually a lot of the mid-sized companies who still have runway and strong amounts of capital are hiring. And what that means is you have to be willing to look at a breadth of opportunities. So don't just look at a certain set of companies. Really consider what's out there, whether it be
Mhm.
small, mid-size, or a big company. Be open to anything. And even if it means that you take a call with a company who you most likely won't join, maybe you'll make a friend. Maybe that founder will know someone who knows someone. You know, you never know where a connection is going to take you. So really just leverage whatever you can, keep an open mind. And I would say if I was to give, just really three general pieces of advice, I'll keep it very general, is one, practice your personal pitch. So especially now, as you're making a transition into what is going to be the next step in your career, a big part of it for me at least was, figuring out, hey, I've been at Meta for 2 months now. What do I really want in my next job? And not only that, but who am I as a person, as an engineer? what are my strengths? And you have to know what you want, know what you're looking for, and how you can especially communicate this. And the question that I ask myself is, what are my strengths and how am I going to leverage those to aid in the company's needs? And you have to be able to communicate that during an interview. So practice that personal pitch, know yourself, know the company, and know how you want to sell that. Number two is to keep an open mind. Like I said, don't let ego or your fear affect whether or not you take a call with some person who reached out to you. Who knows where it's going to take you? 3/4 of the interviews that I've had during this job hunt have to because I've hopped on to a call with some stranger who I met on LinkedIn. And, I know them through some mutual friends, but I never met them in person. And I just have a half an hour conversation about, what company are they at? What are they doing? Do they know anyone who can help? And being willing to ask for that help, I think, has been fruitful in all these different ways. And lastly, it's just you can't be afraid to fail. I just got laid off. There's just not much else left to lose. But not only that, it's a tough time right now. I've sent over like 100 applications out, gotten a couple of interviews here and there, but you might send less or more, but in today's market, your hit rate is going to be, quite low. But, all you need is one. So put yourself out there, and you can't be afraid to fail because, given everything that's happening, failure is, part of the package at this point, but you kind of have to be able to work around that. So, those are the three things that I think I would want people going into this kind of job market and job search to take with them, that I've learned throughout the process.
Really great recommendations, Jake. I think, especially with what you've been through in your journey, and it's it's something that these are great take-home messages, and it's something that definitely someone can apply and utilize to hopefully get back to where they need to go, and maybe perhaps what may happen is that maybe a different path or different opportunity that they weren't even considering in the first place has opened up for them. So great advice, great recommendations. Thank you so much for your time today, Jake.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.